And now, ladies and gentlemen, for the final segment of Jimmy at the Crossroads, our special edition Free to Choose Friday, here's Jimmy Sengenberger.
Welcome back to Jimmy at the Crossroads here on a Free to Choose Friday. Coming to you, of course, in partnership with the Washington Examiner. And sometimes when you're feeling good on a Friday, you just want to whip out one of your harmonicas and play a little bit. Such a pleasure and a privilege to be with you today, as always. Thanks for joining us, being a part of the program. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, be sure to do so. But I wanted to play a little bit of harmonica to introduce our very special guest today, who, according to Twitter, is in quarantine or something in the Dagobah system. Dave Rubin is host of the Rubin Report and also of the new book, Don't Burn This Book, which we're going to put on the screen. Don't burn that book. Buy it instead. Dave Rubin, happy Free to Choose Friday on a day focused on free speech. Welcome to the show. So great to have you.
Jimmy, it's good to be with you. I wish I had a harmonica. I think I've got one around here somewhere, like buried deep, but you've got some skills, man. I'm impressed.
Well, thank you. I got 6 others right here, just so you know.
Wow.
So I am a legit harp player. So how you doing, sir?
Wait, one other thing on the harmonica. What do they call that? A harmonica case. Does it have a
Yes.
special name, or do they just call it a harmonica case?
So it's a harmonica case. It's no special name, and there are 7 different keys in there. This was a D harmonica. I was playing in the key of A, because circle of fifths, if you know anything about music, A is the 5th of D, and I play second position cross harp. I just thought I'd confuse you for a moment, Dave.
I was told there'd be no math here, so I'm not really sure what you're talking about.
We can move on, because I don't think that I didn't think math was your specialty. So
No.
We could talk about speech instead. Yeah, we had a striking debate in the last segment. I had 2 leftist professors on, and they have a different view on whether or not we should allow guest speakers onto campus, campuses across the country that are very controversial. And Jordan Peterson was one speaker that the professor who argued for a higher standard, saying we should limit guest speakers onto campus, that he thought should not be allowed to campus, particularly because there might be some in the audience who would be incited by Peterson on either side, but especially those who, in the incel community or that kind of thing. What do you make of that as somebody who has toured with and gotten to know very well Jordan Peterson?
Well, with all due respect to your previous guests, especially if they are professors at universities, they might want to think about getting into a new line of work. I mean, just quickly on the Peterson front personally, I spent a year and a half touring with this guy. We did about 120 stops in about 20 countries. He gave a different lecture every night, a different hour-and-a-half lecture. I mean, try to think of just the intellectual acumen you need to do that in and of itself. Most people just give the same speech over and over and over ad nauseum. The guy never said a bigoted word, never said a racist word, never said a homophobic or transphobic word. His entire message is about empowering you as the individual to make the responsible choices in your life so that you can flourish, so that your family can flourish, your community, and then we can build up from there. The idea that someone who's a professor at a university, even if you found Jordan's ideas to be odious or nefarious or scary or some other good adjective, you would still want him to speak. Or at the very least, you would say, if he's invited to speak by an accredited group at the university, that he should have the right to speak. It doesn't mean you want everyone to speak at your university. If this was 1939, I wouldn't want Hitler to come to the university. However, if a group invited Hitler, then you would let him speak and you would counter it with good speech. The fact that this thing has let its tentacles loose to the point that university professors find it okay to try to deplatform speakers is so dangerous. And by the way, I always say this thing about how quote unquote journalists are destroying journalism. Well, it's academics who are destroying academia. So they're the ones that are, taking the system down. They're blowing up the Death Star from the inside.
Exactly. I think that's well put. Although what I would say is, because Rob Margison was the professor who was arguing Peterson shouldn't come on campus. He's a good man. He's a good friend of mine. But the idea
did he say anything? Did he say anything specific?
No.
That Jordan has said?
No. And then nobody ever does. Nobody ever does.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question relative to this, because his argument was, there might be people in the audience who have certain radical beliefs that will be reaffirmed by Jordan Peterson. What is the audience reaction, not from the hecklers that try to interrupt from time to time, but from people who were there to learn and to listen? Because I've listened to many hours of Jordan Peterson lectures and interviews, and that's not the sense that I get, that there are radicals amidst him that are getting some reinforced extreme views.
Right. Well, it's interesting that he didn't have a specific example of something Jordan said, because they never do. They'll say he's a transphobe, and you say, well, wait a minute, I toured with him, I met trans people there, they seem to enjoy it, and he never said he didn't want anything bad to happen to trans people. He wants them to be treated with the same rights and dignity as everyone else. He just doesn't want the government to compel your speech related to what pronouns you have to use when referring to a trans person. But the point is, if you treat him with respect, he'll treat you with respect. That's the social contract that we all abide by in a free country. We don't want the government telling us what to say. I saw Jordan get people off drugs. I saw Jordan reunite families. I saw him just get better jobs. Like the litany of things that we all go through in life, the struggles that we all go through. There isn't one example that he didn't help someone in that specific case. There was one night we got to the end of the show in Dublin, in Ireland, and we walk out the side into a little alleyway. You walk out the artist entrance, and there's two men standing about 20 feet away. One's about 60, the other one's probably about 25. And they're hugging and they're both crying. And they come right up to us. And it turns out that it was a father and son who had a falling out about 5 years before, who then independently both bought the book, 12 Rules for Life, and then came to the show. They saw each other at the show and they made amends there. I mean, try to imagine something more powerful than that. That was the message that the guy was sharing. And then, I would say these are faux academics. I don't know this specific person that you had on, but these people that are afraid of ideas and have the gall to say that they're the ones that are supposed to be teaching young minds. In college, you're supposed to learn how to think, not necessarily what to think. Yeah. And they're robbing them of that. But as I said before, I mean, this is why academia is crumbling, and coronavirus has just exacerbated that. Why would you go into $150,000 in debt to learn from a bunch of people that are afraid of ideas? Doesn't really make any sense.
Well, Dave Rubin, in your book, and I've heard you say this before, but in your book, Don't Burn This Book, you say that free speech is the best disinfectant for bad ideas. And I think that's fundamental to what we're talking about here.
Well, absolutely. If you were to say something truly racist right now, or you were to say something, using any of these buzzwords, homophobic or transphobic or Islamophobic or whatever it might be, I could then counter that with some sense and some logic, using reason, as humans do with our brains. That's what separates us from the animals. But the idea that I would stop you from being able to speak is crazy. And, we have a much bigger problem, as you're well aware, when this is related to big tech, because we don't know how they're manipulating us, what they're taking down, what they're not letting us say. Just in the last couple of weeks, YouTube said that if you put up information that is counter to the WHO, the World Health Organization, that they're going to take down the videos. Now, the World Health Organization, they're a health organization. Okay, that's right. That doesn't mean they get everything right. Why should you not be able to criticize or counter their ideas? Let's not forget, it was only a few weeks ago that they were telling us not to wear masks. Now they're telling us to wear masks. So do we have to take down their old videos when they were countering what they now purport to believe? I mean, we have major, major problems. People think that the free speech battle is just about the government coming for your free speech. And of course, that's the beautiful protection that we have with the First Amendment in the United States, which, by the way, for all these people that tell us how, the rest of the world is laughing at the United States because of Donald Trump, it's like, come on, everybody, and in every country I went to, people wish they had the protections that we have. So we have a big free speech problem And I'm not even that concerned about it from the government yet. What I'm more concerned is we're doing it to ourselves, and then the big tech element. The government part always lurks behind all that, of course, but that's actually not the big fight right now.
Now, I've heard you, Dave Rubin, talk about big tech before, and here's the rub for me. And it is a difficult situation in a lot of ways because we do see censorship of a variety of different, more conservative speakers or viewpoints, different narratives than what the media is trying to spin, WHO politicians in regards to coronavirus, as you've pointed out. But at the same time, Facebook and Twitter, we may need them for the roles we play in media, but you don't need to be a part of that. And technically speaking, Facebook can't force you in any way to use its products or services, whereas the government has the power of force. So there's this big question about how we regulate or don't regulate big tech. And I'm of the mind that government shouldn't get involved because I think that would cause even more problems. And what needs to happen is we need to speak up more and more pronounced and get people lined up together against Facebook and Twitter when they do, or YouTube when they do these sorts of censorship things, as opposed to, as some are suggesting, looking towards regulating big tech more. What do you think of that?
You're speaking my language, man. Yeah, this is where I come on the more libertarian side of the argument. I don't believe that you take one big thing, big tech, and then you combine it with this other thing, big government, and then think that that will make things smaller. What that will do is combine them into some sort of giant Voltron or Transformer Devastator-like monster. Did you get the reference there?
I did indeed.
You did. I thought you would. You look like you're at the right age to get the reference. So I don't believe in that. I believe in human ingenuity. I believe in competition. I believe in individuals standing up. So yes, is it scary that YouTube and Twitter and Facebook have this kind of power over us? Of course it is. But you know what? These things didn't always exist, and they won't always exist. David beat Goliath. The little guy can beat the big guy. As you may have heard, I started a tech company, locals.com, and we're building digital homes for creators where you own all of your stuff. We don't own user data. You set your rules. And I think we're solving about 95% of problems for 95% of the creators. And just yesterday, Donald Trump Jr., you may have heard of that guy, he announced that he's going to be using our platform. So I think things can change. And the knee-jerk response to just say, hey, we got a problem, let government fix it. It's like, well, government causes most of the problem. So most likely they're not going to solve most of the problem.
Many times already on this program, I have played Ronald Reagan's statement that government is not the solution to our problems. Government is the problem, because it's so true. But you look at big tech. I remember when Mark Zuckerberg, just a couple of years ago now, I guess it was a couple of years ago, although it seems more recent than that, he testified before the United States Congress, and he was asked a question about whether or not he would support regulation of big tech. And he said, if it's the right regulation, and then Senator Lindsey Graham asked him, would you help us write regulations? And he said, sure, I'll help you. Big tech wants more regulation because they know they can have a seat at the table in order to push out little guys and like locals.com in order to increase their power relative to the market.
Well, not only do they want it because it will help crush competition, right? Because then the government will be off their back. But they also want it because then then there's this strange line where it's like, instead of the government censoring you, well, it'll be the company censoring you, but the government will have something to do with the company. All of these people, when AOC and the rest of the progressives, they demand that Facebook, censor hate speech and censor all these things. It's like, wait a minute. Hate speech, we're allowed to say hate speech. The Supreme Court ruled on that. There's no such thing as hate speech. You can't call for direct violence for people, but you're allowed to say bad things. That is part of what free speech is. Actually, it's a necessary part, because how do you decide what is right and what is okay and what is acceptable and what isn't? So once AOC says, no, Facebook, you have to do this, well, congratulations. That is a major infringement on our First Amendment rights. And I think a lot of people are waking up to this stuff. I think one of the side effects, the positive side effects, let's say, of coronavirus is that people are waking up. They're going, wait a minute. Why does the government have so much to do with my life? Name three. If you say to anybody, you could say to the furthest lefty socialist Bernie Bananas loon on Twitter, if you say to them, name three politicians you like, they can't do it. They'll say Bernie, AOC, and then, maybe picks another. But the point is, nobody can pick three they like. Even the people who love Trump the most, they don't love him because he's a politician. They love him because he's not a politician. So the idea that these people that we've just decided to give power to have any clue what's going on. I mean, that Gavin Newsom, my governor here in California, who was the former mayor of San Francisco, who turned it into literally a crap hole. There's an app to tell you where human poop is on the street in San Francisco. I'm pretty sure that this is not the guy that should be ruling my life in California right now, which maybe says more about me, why I'm here. I'm not sure, but we used to be able to go to the beaches, so that was nice.
Well, I'll tell you, Colorado is becoming increasingly Californicated, and that's where I'm broadcasting from. So, I mean, yeah, it would be nice. Maybe you can help us ward off some of the left-wing stuff that's been coming from California by moving here. You'd be the right kind of Californian to move to Colorado, but you might not want to come here, to be honest with you, because more parts of the country.
I got my own problems over here, man.
I know full well. I watch your show. You have a tremendous amount of problems, Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin hosts the Rubin Report. Let's talk about what's going on with coronavirus for just one moment, especially on the free speech side. But look, I know that you are a Revenge of the Sith fan, Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. And this has been in my mind because I think this is the nature, this is the way that government is right now. It reminds me of a particular scene in Revenge of the Sith.
The Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire for a safe and secure society.
For a safe and secure society, that sounds like what the argument is behind suppressing some of the speech on countervailing narratives in this coronavirus crisis and the science. That sounds like so many things that are happening in our society today, Dave Rubin.
Jimmy, can I tell you that I've done about 200 shows in the last 3 weeks for this book tour? This has been by far my favorite interview. The fact that you just played a clip from Revenge of the Sith, I have to insert Star Wars references.
The force is
normally.
Strong with me. Dave, the force is strong with me.
Indeed it is. Well, look, I've been saying to people for years that the prequels will be looked back on much more fondly. Yes, the acting is stiff. Hayden Christensen's a terrible actor, and some of the dialogue and the love scenes are stiff. But the general idea of a person creating conflict to consistently build power, which is exactly what first Senator Palpatine did, and then Chancellor Palpatine, and then ultimately Supreme Leader Palpatine. That's exactly what he did. And what was he doing the entire time? The more, that scene right there, that's it. And then everyone will cheer you along as you're telling them that you're going to keep them safe from the thing that you created. So I'm not saying that our government created the coronavirus, but they create a response that is so over the top that suddenly every time they do something, we applaud them for it. So you got people in California where virtually nobody is sick, and certainly young people are healthy, and it's 85 and sunny every day, and they're telling us we can't go to the beach, and we're all like, oh, good, we can't go to the beach anymore. Well, why am I paying 13% property taxes? So the point is, we need Jedi. We need more Jedi. They're scattered across the galaxy. Another reference that I'm sure you've heard me make is that what the progressives did to the liberals was basically execute Order 66. Mm-hmm. The progressives moved into the liberals. The liberals didn't realize it because liberals are nice and liberals are tolerant and decent. And they just executed all of them. And I would say there's a couple good liberals spread throughout the galaxy, which is why I say I'm on Dagobah. And I would say Bill Maher's there. And Bill Maher's an interesting character because who hates Bill Maher now? It's the left. Who loves Bill Maher now? It's the right. I mean, everything is completely upside down right now. And, I am a believer that the little guy can beat the big guy. So if Luke blew up the Death Star and all of these things can happen, then we can fix this problem, but it ain't going to be easy.
The only quibble I would have is that the Jedi failed to foresee the rise of the Empire. And so having more Jedi may not have made much of a difference. Instead, we need a resurgence of the Jedi, shall we say, because that did make the difference with Luke.
You are making Luke Skywalker's argument in The Last Jedi, which was a horrific movie, and I'd like to have, I could do a whole show. It was horrible, and it decimated so much of the lore of Star Wars. But you are right that at the height of their power, and this is exactly what Luke says. I mean, it's the only line in the whole thing that makes sense. At the height of their power, they didn't realize that this thing was coming. And in many ways, that is a parable to what's happening today. If you live in the West right now, but specifically in the United States, let's just put aside coronavirus specifically for a second because of the amount of unemployment right now. But just look at us 2 months ago. the unprecedented success, unprecedented wealth, unprecedented freedom across the board, all of the good things that the West and capitalism has brought upon us. And then at the same time, then coronavirus sneaks in and we didn't see it coming, that the authoritarians would take advantage of it. So it does, I don't like Last Jedi, but I can work this analogy here.
Okay, so as a Star Wars movie, Last Jedi was not up to par. I just find it entertaining. That's what I mean by okay. Like, I can sit through and watch the movie and I'm entertained, but I'm also judging it a good bit. So I think there's a balance that could be struck.
Why is Luke projecting himself as a Force ghost to fight Kylo if he's going to die anyway? Just show up, man.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. That's a very fair point.
He can't fly an X-Wing anymore? I mean, just freaking fly over to the Salt Planet, do your thing, and dip out. I mean, come on.
Dave Rubin, we need to have you back for a full discussion on all 11 Star Wars movies and just go through piece by piece by piece. And I'll even play a little more harmonica for you at that point in time, too.
Fine, but I'm not going to talk about Solo, that trash.
Now, I actually liked that. I thought that was pretty good. I thought that was good. We got to have a more conversation. I mean, we are agreeing a heck of a lot on the ideas of free speech and liberty and individual rights, but I guess there are a few differences when it comes to, but we're both fans. I mean,
as General Grievous said to Obi-Wan Kenobi, time to abandon ship.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck. Dave Rubin, author of the book. Let's put it up on the screen one more time before he abandoned ship. Don't burn this book. It's a good read. One thing I have to say I really like about it, Dave, is that you captured your voice very well. I mean, it's not easy when you're doing writing. I write columns and articles. It's not always easy to capture your voice in writing, and I think you did a good job there. Thanks so much for joining us today on Jimmy at the Crossroads. This was a blast.
May the Force be with you.
And I'm Catholic, and with your spirit. Dave Rubin, thanks for joining us, sir. Good to have you.
See you, Jimmy.
Thank you. Check out his book, Don't Burn This Book, on sale now. It's a great read. Very interesting. He delves into a lot of different topics. And on the subject, I mean, we got off from free speech a little bit, but on the subject of free speech, he's right on that the best disinfectant for bad ideas is free speech. It is the ability to listen to and engage with different ideas. And that's what we're seeing suppressed in our society today, and far, far too often. We need to have this resurgence of liberty. I guess it's the Jedi coming back in the form of Luke to blow up the Death Star, the second Death Star, and defeat the Emperor. That's what we need in our society. It seems like almost this is post-Order 66. And we're now at a point where the Rebel Alliance is trying to do battle and have a resurgence and to restore liberty. And that's what we all need to do when it comes to freedom of speech. Thanks for watching this clip from Jimmy at the Crossroads. You do not want to miss a minute of engaging, intelligent talk. Subscribe today to the Jimmy at the Crossroads YouTube channel, and you'll be sure to catch our live broadcast. I appreciate your support.
I got Jimmy at the crossroads, making sense out of no sense. Yeah.